Good morning and welcome to One Cool Thing. I'm Alex Colon, this is Sasha Segan, and this is our show that we record every day in the PC Mag Labs, where we show you one of the cool things that we have recently reviewed. Today's cool thing is the Nighthawk LTE mobile hotspot router. This is a hotspot for AT&T, and if you watch the show often, you probably realize we don't talk about hotspots much.
No.
And part of the reason for that is because hotspots just aren't that, they're not the sexiest gadgets.
There also aren't that many new hotspots a year. I mean, it's one of those, at this point, it's one of those kind of slow-moving areas where you only really see 3 or 4 new ones a year. So we round them up at the end of the year and look at what the new ones were for that year. But in this case, like, we have found a hotspot that's a significant leap forward for hotspot technology.
Right, this is, for what a hotspot is, this is a pretty cool hotspot.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, I should just mention, I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show, if you're watching this live on Facebook now and you have any questions about what we're talking about, feel free to leave your question and Social Pete will read it out to us. If you're watching this later on YouTube, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and let's get back to the hotspot.
Yeah, so the Netgear Nighthawk is the first hotspot that has Qualcomm's gigabit X16 modem.
Right.
And now this is something that AT&T is calling 5G evolution, although it is not in any way 5G.
Right.
But it's a brand that AT&T is lying about. And but it is the fastest LTE possible in the country right now. And it does that by being able to aggregate 4 different bands of spectrum, if necessary, and to be able to have 4 active antenna branches, which is called 4x4 MIMO, on 2 different bands of spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen hotspots with the previous X12 modem before. The AT&T Unite Explorer has that. The Verizon AC791 has that. But this hotspot gets better speeds and better coverage by having this year's top-of-the-line modem.
So it's not 5G.
No.
It's just the fastest 4G you can get.
Right, right. Nothing's 5G yet. There is no 5G yet.
Right.
But this is as good as you can get with a 4G technology right now.
All right, let's talk about the hotspot itself. I mean, one thing that I noticed when I see it, this is a little bit bigger than most of the hotspots we test.
Yeah, I feel like it's twice the size. I feel like your average hotspot is that big, and this one is that big.
Right.
And what's going on here, kind of a big reason for the size, is this monster of a 5,000 plus milliamp hour battery.
Right.
And first of all, notice the battery is removable. So if you want multiple batteries, you can do that. And I got more than 19 hours of non-stop streaming on this one battery. So that's great.
I mean, if you're using this, if you're traveling with it, chances are you're not going to use 20 hours of battery in a day. Mm-hmm. And if you are, I mean, you can always carry spare. And we have a question.
Someone wants to know, what phone makes that hotspot the fastest?
I'm not sure how to parse that question.
I think, well, what you were saying is it's the modem that is what makes the hotspot fast.
Right, right. So this hotspot puts out a Wi-Fi signal that can then be used by any device. It could be used by PCs, it could be used by phones, it could be used by tablets. You know, anything that uses Wi-Fi can work with this hotspot.
Right.
And they'll work at, you know, whatever the maximum speed is that you're getting from your device and from AT&T's network at the time.
And what is the maximum number of devices that can be connected to this?
This can connect 20 devices, which is more than most of the hotspots you'll find on the market. You'll often find 10 or 15 devices. Mm-hmm. Now, 20 devices, you do end up running up against a bottleneck of your AT&T backhaul connection.
Right.
And that was actually a problem in our testing because AT&T service is not that great in New York City. Mm-hmm. If you go look at our fastest mobile network story, you'll find that New York is one of the weakest cities for AT&T.
Right.
And so we were not getting spectacular AT&T speeds. If we had 20 devices using it at once, it would slow down.
Right. This just can, theoretically, if you're using this in an ideal area, you can hit those AT&T's highest speeds.
Right, right. And you can connect 20 devices at once without one of them getting kicked off.
Right.
Now, I want to show off some of the ports on here because this is really unusual for a hotspot. We have an Ethernet port. almost never see that.
Right.
And in this case, it's primarily for the Ethernet port to be used as a travel router. That means that if you go somewhere with an Ethernet connection that you want to share out as Wi-Fi, you can turn this into a travel router, plug the Ethernet into this, and share out non-AT&T connections as Wi-Fi as well.
Which is important because, I mean, when you're getting data for these hotspots, it's still expensive.
Yeah. I mean, AT&T is not cheap, and their unlimited data plan, although they do offer an unlimited data plan, after I believe 22 gigabytes, it starts to throttle.
Right.
So if you have the option to use this as a router for a different network sometimes, then that's a good option to use.
All right, let's take another question.
What's the advantage of using this versus using your phone as a hotspot?
There's a bunch of advantages. So the first big advantage is this. Using your phone as a hotspot torches your battery. It kills your battery pretty quickly. If you are serious about accessing the internet, creating Wi-Fi for multiple devices, this dedicated battery is going to, save your phone for the rest of the day. But there are some other advantages as well. For instance, here, let me show you here. On the side of the hotspot, you see there are these two external antenna ports. Now, by default, this hotspot gets about the reception of a Galaxy Note 8, which is really, really good reception.
Right.
Plug a $20 antenna that you find off Amazon into these ports, and you get spectacular reception, better than any phone. Okay. The X16 modem in here is, yeah, sure, this is the modem in the Galaxy Note 8, but you may not have a phone with the fastest modem.
Right.
Some other advantages I can think of. Now, of course, also this functions as a travel router, so you can, as I said, share out other connections. You can share out the contents of storage using the USB port. Yeah, I mean that's a bunch of. Oh, right. The one other thing, and this is kind of a this is kind of a logistical thing, which is that a lot of businesses will not pay for the usage of workers' own cell phones. However, they will pay for the business to rent a business-devoted hotspot. That happens here at Ziff Davis. Okay, so here at Ziff Davis, for instance, when we go on the road, the company has a bunch of hotspots it will pay monthly for, but it will not pay my cell phone bill. So from a business perspective, I want the business to get and use, and I want to use for business those hotspots, as opposed to burning my own personal data plan that I am paying for out of my personal money.
Right. We have another question.
What's the best option for someone who's on T-Mobile?
T-Mobile does not have any good hotspots. T-Mobile has one mediocre hotspot, which is called the Link Zone. It is not very good. The best option for someone who is on T-Mobile is to use a gigabit LTE capable phone and the hotspot function on that phone, such as the Galaxy S8 or the Galaxy Note 8.
Yeah, so one thing that we do when we're reviewing hotspots is we review all the hotspots on each carrier. So when you're reviewing this AT&T one, you will mostly rate it against the other hotspots that are on AT&T.
Yeah.
But we don't, when we have our story of the best hotspots, and we don't necessarily, the AT&T hotspot isn't compared to the T-Mobile versus the Sprint. But I would say that from all the hotspots we have tested, this one is probably the most unique.
This is the best hardware, absolutely. And one of the things that strikes me, and one of the things that has always frustrated me about the hotspot market, is that there are no unlocked or multi-carrier hotspots.
Right.
It's not like with phones, where the same phone is offered over all carriers, or you could go get an unlocked one at B&H. Hotspots in the US are very, very siloed between carriers, which can be really frustrating, because I would love to get or use this on T-Mobile, but nope, they're locked to AT&T.
Yeah. We have another question?
We'll go back to the T-Mobile question earlier. So there's no workaround for someone, like if they don't want to end up killing a phone's battery or something like that. Like they have to use the phone.
Well, you could get a battery pack for your phone.
You can get a battery pack for your phone. But T-Mobile does not offer any good hotspots. They offer one hotspot, which is not good, the Link Zone.
I mean, it works.
It works, but it will get worse reception and slower speeds than your Galaxy S8. I'm very frustrated with T-Mobile about this. I think it's a bad decision that they've made. I'm frustrated and frankly a little angry that they don't serve this market. But hey, that's their choice. But yeah, what you want to do is you want to get a good phone, you want to attach an external battery pack to it.
So we've been talking about all of the great things about this hotspot. There are a couple of things that we didn't love. Do you want to point those out?
Yes. Okay. So for some reason it's not on right now because I suspect I was charging it off a charger that wasn't actually plugged into the wall, which is something you should always check. Always make sure your devices are plugged into the wall. But this is a display on the front, and it's not a touch screen. And I, for one, find that frustrating. A lot of other modern hotspots have a touchscreen, which allows you to change settings or, look at. You can tap the power button to cycle through, like looking at the SSID name and the password to get there. But for instance, if you want to turn options on and off. Navigate the UI. There's a lot of stuff which you have to do on this hotspot through the web interface,
right,
as opposed to doing on the hotspot itself, which you can do on the AT&T Unite Explorer or the Verizon AC791 or a lot of the other really good hotspots.
And this thing is certainly big enough to house a touchscreen.
Yes, it's a brick. I mean, that's the other thing that it is definitely bigger than a lot of the other hotspots out there, and I'm used to, in a lot of cases, putting a hotspot into my jacket pocket, and this thing it's a lump in my jacket pocket.
Right. We have another question.
Are there any regional restrictions? Could someone just take this traveling?
So this is great for roaming. This has excellent roaming bands. This has all of AT&T's LTE bands. It has global roaming bands. The restrictions are it is locked to AT&T, so you cannot use it with a different SIM card. And also, of course, it is dependent on the details of your AT&T service plan, which usually means that you have to buy a global roaming data package for the hotspot, which will be more expensive than a local SIM card data package.
Any other questions?
If someone was going to use this for Netflix, do you feel like that would be a viable option?
I don't think you should. I think with
how much Netflix
AT&T's
are you gonna
data
do?
is
Yeah.
expensive. Netflix uses a ton of it.
Yeah.
And then when you hit that wall, even if you're on the unlimited plan, then your speeds are going to get throttled.
Yeah. I mean, it really becomes a question of how much Netflix. There is a data meter on this, so you can see when you're running out of data. But you need to look at your AT&T data plan, you need to look at your Netflix data usage, and you need to see if these things match up. Because I'm gonna scroll down here to where I was writing about the service plans. Wait, where is the rest of my story? Hang on. This is just the spec sheet. Okay. There we go. AT&T's best deal is a $95 unlimited plan, which deprioritizes you after 22 gigs. There's also a $50 5 gigabyte plan. 5 gigabyte plan is, I believe, about 5 hours of Netflix. I believe Netflix runs at about a gig an hour. Tell me if I'm wrong. With your 22 gigabytes before deprioritization, at the rate of a gig an hour, that would be 20 hours of Netflix a month. It's not that huge.
Right. I think it's also important to point out that a hotspot like this isn't intended to replace. It's not intended to become your primary home internet.
I mean, what's frustrating is that the hardware absolutely could be your primary home internet. The backhaul connection is good enough. The antenna ports are terrific. I've heard there is a firmware update which also enables it to share out its internet through Ethernet, not just accept it in. So the hardware, absolutely. AT&T does not offer a sufficient service plan to function as home internet. The problem is not the technology, it's AT&T's business model.
But that's true across the other big carriers.
Yeah, it's
too.
true of all the carriers. All the carriers The average home usage of internet in this country is about 190 gigabytes per month.
Right.
And none of the carriers offer plans that go anywhere near that.
Any other questions? All right. Well, this is, again, the Nighthawk LTE mobile router hotspot. There's so many words in that title.
Is also a product number there, but what you should come away with is that if you are on AT&T, and especially if you're a business, especially if you're a road warrior, a business traveler, or maybe you're somebody who does a lot of RVing, you just spend a lot of time on the road in AT&T coverage areas. This will give you the best speeds, the best connectivity, the best battery life. It is really a terrific way to connect to the AT&T network.
Oh, and I'm just remembering now, this is $200 if you're buying it on its own, or $90 with a contract.
2-year contract. Yep.
So we gave it, we do have a question.
One last one is, what phones offer a gigabit hotspot, if any?
The Galaxy S8 and Note 8 are gigabit phones. The Google Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL are gigabit phones. I believe the LG V30 is a gigabit phone. These are all gigabit devices.
We should also be seeing a lot more of those this year.
Yep.
So we gave this 4.5 stars in our editor's choice for being the best hotspot on AT&T. Also one of the best hotspots in general.
Yep.
So thanks for watching One Cool Thing, and we'll be back again tomorrow with another cool device to show you.